Okay, thanks, Esther. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August Lochaber Area Committee. Please note this meeting will be recorded and uploaded to the council's YouTube channel. We have apologies for absence. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Yes, it's about item 8. I am volunteer at the Glenroy Folk Museum, although I've not been active for years and I've never resigned as a volunteer. In itself, there's no financial interest in this, but the Glenroy Folk Museum also sells my music recordings, so I will not take part in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So before our recess powers, the committee is asked to note that the recess powers granted by the council at its meeting on the 26th of June have not been exercised in relation to the business of Lochaber Area Committee. And I would also just quickly like to thank Andrew Baldry, who stood as a councillor in the May 22 elections and has resigned on health grounds. A big thank you to Andrew for his help and support over the last few years and for stepping up to the role after coming to the role unelected, unopposed, with only 3 standing in Ward 11 in 2022. So we hope to see a strong standing of candidates in the September by-election and look forward to a new councillor joining our councillor sagas in Grafton in September. So moving on to item 4, which is the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services Local Committee Performance Report. And good morning to Shay, who is not online. So I think
I don't have him yet. I could try and contact him, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Alistair.
Yeah, I've sent him an email, but
okay, well, we could.
I just haven't heard from him, so.
Yeah. So we'll give Shay a minute, but we'll move on to item 5, which is the winter road service plan, if Kristen is able to join us.
Yeah.
We're just seeing if that can happen.
Yeah, I'll contact her.
Dot is.
Yep, she's just going to join.
Yep,
she's just going to join Alistair.
So we may come back to item 4 if Shay joins us, someone from the fire service. Otherwise, we'll move on to item 5, which is the winter service plan, which we are being asked to approve, and Kristen is now with us. So thank you very much for joining us, Kristen. Good morning, and I will hand over to you.
Hi, good morning. I didn't expect to be in the agenda this quick, so I was
sorry, apologies.
Moving quick there. Right, so first up is the winter service plan papers submitted for approval for 25-26. So this report is an overview of our winter service plan in Lochaber, which starts October 15th and runs till April the 15th and complies with our winter maintenance policy 2008. There is no change to any of the primary routes or the secondary routes. and I think you all have the maps to view on that. So within the report, you can see our primary, secondary routes, other routes and footpath treatments as resources allow, along with the fleet and establishment. And it's got all our target treatment times and our ending times, provision of salt, including the winter resilience scheme that community councils and public can join. So I am ready for any questions, if anybody's got any on that.
Yes, thanks very much, Kristen. Sorry for catching you on the hop. Does anyone have any questions? No, I guess I would just like to ask how much flexibility is there during the winter, you know, if a new path or new section of road, it becomes clear they need treatment, what sort of flexibility is there in the system to deal with this?
Well, if it's a new development, it has to come under adoption. We're not insured to go on a developer's road to treat the road or the footpaths. It is a bit of a grey area at the moment, to be honest. I think Blair phase 1 isn't quite at the adoption stage. I was trying to actually find out some information just before joining this. So that'll be our next development that we will be looking to take on. Angus McKeever Way, I think, must just be just about there at the adoption. So these developments they'd either become a secondary route as we do the primary route, which is, you know, the bus routes, and we would have out the standard grip bins, and they would just be incorporated into the plan. I think as the developments round for Williams, certainly they all become adopted, then it might end up being a change of sort of revenue, fleet and you know, heavy goods drivers, because we're not, if it gets to a stage that we can't make our target times, if it's classed as a bus route, which I think Neil Clark Way will become a primary route certainly in the future. So there is going to be changes coming up, but as it stands at the moment, the plan is what you've got in front of you today.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kristen. And Thomas has got his hand up.
It was just a quick one, Chris. If somebody has a grip bin outside and it gets emptied, and sometimes it can happen really quick, and I'm thinking specifically of somewhere like Plymouth up, and can you just refresh my memory as to where exactly they should phone to alert the fact that they need more grip in an area?
The best system is the CRM system. That's the online portal. And I think the message we always try and put out is let us know before it's completely empty, because again, it's a resource issue. You know, you've got to load up a pickup, load up the telehandler to load the pickup, and then, you know, deliver the salt. So if we know before they're at the critical stage, I think the last count was, I think there's something in the region of 150 grip bins in around Lochaber. So it's we try and catch all that at the start of the winter and just refresh as we go, especially the schools. You know, if we get, say, one CRM and 20 schools needing filled up, then that's not particularly helpful. Whereas if we get a kind of heads up before then, you know, it helps resources. Usually when all the grip bins are empty is when we've had, you know, a couple of weeks of hard frost and everybody's busy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I don't think we have any other questions. So, oh, sorry, John.
Thank you. Morning, Kristen. Just in terms of the number of vehicles you've got and the man hours, I noticed looking at the figures, you can cover the primary and secondary, but you don't completely cover the other routes. So how do you manage that? Is it like they're done once in so many days or something? How do you cover the whole area, or will there be some roads that just simply aren't done? Thank you.
Yeah, so the primary routes, you know, they're our target times, so we get to them. Then some of our secondary routes cross over, so that, you know, that's easily treated. Some of the other routes can be two-man routes. So if you take the likes of Lochaber, Bracara, Glenroy, they're doubling up routes due to the lack of radio comms, and it can be like dangerous bends or, you know, various different things that they're, so that resource can stretch to get to some of these routes. Generally, we always try and get there as quick as possible, but there can be the odd day where, you know, some of the public can't get out just due to, you know, primary, secondary routes taking plant breakdowns. We're generally usually quite lucky here. We've got 8 gritters and 1 spare, but we can sometimes be asked for gritters to be moved to different areas. So it is quite hard to manage. But, you know, having the grit bins and the winter resilience scheme and, you know, letting us be informed.
Still connected.
Yeah, we can start. We're just having a few technical issues in the room. I can see everything on our laptop. Yeah, I can see it on my laptop. So thanks for that, Kristen. I don't think we have any other questions. So I presume committee are happy to approve the winter service plan?
Yes.
Yes, good. So moving on to item 6, which is the partial deletion of the U1015 Glenroy Road. I think, Kristen, that that this is we can talk to you about this as well. Is that correct? And thank you for the paper.
Yeah. So this paper was it's pretty much self-explanatory. The Glenroy estate approached Highland Council to take over 465 metres of the end of the road, and that also includes a bridge, Alderrick Bridge and Cattle Bridge maintenance plans. So the requests came from them. There will be a small sum of money that would have to upgrade the turning circle, which I think, looking at it, I think that's where they might have always had like their bins placed, and that's where the waste team would collect bins. So there's quite a standing area there. It just needs upgraded. And the benefits, as I say, is 465 metres of road length. A bridge that's been identified would need renewed in the next 5 years, and well, a cattle grid, there's always maintenance issues with them. So also, I think importantly, the state has confirmed that public access won't be compromised, because there is a bothy out there that public walk out to, Connell bothy, I believe. So that is also down for approval. I think this is the first stage, and it goes, if it's approved today, then it goes to consultation with the public and such like. So this is very much stage 1 of road deletion. And there's only one property at the end of that road, which is the estate themselves. The road's not serving anybody else.
Yep. Thanks for that, Kristen. Certainly, if the state are going to maintain the road and the bridge, that can only be a good thing. So it's the turning circle you mentioned. Is that like at the road, the cattle grid?
Yeah, it's just before the cattle grid. I did actually try and get a hold of Bridget, the access officer, as well. If you wish, I could try and get a statement off her. Just it might be worthwhile. Just, the access code in the public right away and such like.
Yeah, that would certainly make sense. So the turning circle that you talked about being upgraded, are the estate going to help with the upgrading of that, or is that a council?
No, we would take on funding we would take on the funding from that as part of them, you know, taking over the road adoption and the bridge, the cattle bridge. So we would take on that out of our area budgets.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Any other questions? Sorry. Can't see in your mind, so I think that sounds like members are happy to approve the partial deletion of the Glenroy Road. Yes. Yep. Excellent. So thank you very much, Kristen, and thanks for joining us this morning. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Chair, could I ask, can we just pause for a couple of minutes and try and sort this?
Yeah, we're just going to pause the meeting while we sort out some technical issues in the room. The screen is now working again, so that is all good. So we can carry on. So item 7 is the Scottish Play Park funding. So what was that? Oh, we've got Davy Lamont. Thanks for joining us, Davy. And thanks for the report. I'll hand over to you.
Good morning, members. And
Good morning.
It's a straightforward one, I hope. It's to discuss Scottish Government Play Park funding for Ward 11. As per the report, we had a discussion in June at one of the area business meetings, and I'm just here today to see if we can homologate the decision that was taken then. Happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? I think no questions, Davy. So I think members are happy to agree that 20,000 be allocated to the project as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good morning. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So 8 is we've got Community Regeneration Fund assessment, and we've got Martin joining us in the room. So we'll just he will be coming in a minute. Happening things very quickly.
What's he up to?
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah, members, I haven't actually received a response, so I've actually contacted some of his colleagues, so hopefully I'll get a response soon. So just in terms of this item, I think Councillor Farrett had declared an interest in this item, so she should leave the room for this for the applications she's actually declared an interest for.
Yeah, thanks. Switch this one. There are three applications being considered, so you don't need to leave 2 of them. Next one as the Glencoe Federal Museum is the first one, but there'll be a check. I think Martin will general overview first. So thanks very much for joining us this morning, Martin. So we're being asked to consider the applications that have been presented, and thanks for the report, Martin. I'll hand over to you.
That's great, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. First of all, I'd just like to give you an update on your available area budget for the Community Regeneration Fund. I'm pleased to be able to advise you that the Place-Based Investment Programme funds, PBIP, have now been partially released to you. The Scottish Government will be releasing these funds in 2 tranches this year, and they have released the majority of those funds now. That means that your area budget for this year, as set out as section 5.4 of the report, is currently 793,564. So the budget for this year and considerably more than last year, because, as I've advised previously, 2 tranches of coastal communities funding have been released as well. So there are 3 applications before you for consideration today. And if members are minded to approve all of these, the total request is 192,367, and that would leave you with 601,197 remaining in your budget. And we're able to commit that money certainly up to the January committee of next year as well. So I'm able to bring applications to you both for your November committee and the January committee as well. So there are 3 applications before you today, from Glencoe Folk Museum, seeking funding support to put a new exhibition space within the museum as part of a much wider development of the museum that's been ongoing for several years now. That application is seen very much as a kind of final brick in the wall for removal of funding package. The second one is from Highland Council, and that's seeking funding for the replacement Corran Ferry crew transfer vessel. Members will be aware from previous discussions and briefings that the business meetings, the wider context of that, essentially though it's a vessel that takes the crew out to the moored ferry offshore. And the third and final application is from Anne Comingall for a contribution towards a marquee as part of the forthcoming mod in Lochaber. I'm happy to talk a little bit more to each of these applications if you'd like, Chair, or if you're happy, just if you've got any questions, happy to take them.
I guess if we could do the Glencoe Museum first, because they're on
Yes.
schedule for the next 2. So if we do that, does anyone have any questions in relation to the Glencoe Museum application? Seems not, Martin, so I assume everyone's happy to approve that application for a good application, and they've got a good amount of match funding as well, haven't they, John?
Just a side question, do we know how many visitors the Glencoe Museum actually has?
There were some very detailed figures in the depths of the application, and also the very detailed business plan that came in. Trying to see if I can find that specifically. I may not have that to hand here, unfortunately. What I can say is that the projections for this going forward were for a very significant increase in visitor numbers, because the current museum was considered to be quite tired, and at the end of its life, the exhibition equipment, and this is some really quite state-of-the-art exhibition equipment that they want to put in.
That's good, thank you. Sorry.
That's, I don't say sorry. So I think, yep, I think we've got overall approval for that, Martin.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, just Sarah can come back into the room for the next 2.
I'll get that information to you just for context. Really.
Yeah. Money we spend has a significant impact.
Can I ask a quick question while we're waiting for them to come back in? And maybe it's Alistair that would need to answer it. Is there any way that, like, we've got this down as an item, but you're trying to flip back and forwards through different, is there any way we could delineate it whereby in the agenda for the drop-down screen, where you could go, right, I want to go to this agenda item, I want to go to the Glencoe Museum, and you just click a button, because you're having to frantically go backwards and forwards through pages to find the beginning of like the next one. Is there any way within the drop-down screen that could be incorporated?
Well, what I could do, members, I could bookmark the relevant application. It's the application form you're talking about, or
when it comes to the application form, you want to read through it. You know, it's page 63. The next one's page 76. You've got to search for it. If it could be in a drop down, we can move on to the next item really quick.
I could when I put out the papers, I could bookmark the relevant applications.
Yeah, that would. I was actually thinking the same thing, Thomas. That would be really good. Yeah. Delineation between the appendices in the bookmarks is be really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to deal with the mod one then? Okay, members, the second application before you is for the high level marquee as part of the overall Lochaber mod that's happening in October. Although the cost of this is presented in isolation for simplicity for the application, the overall cost of the mod and the funding package that is in place to deliver that is in excess of £600,000. So this application is seen as one of the last kind of pieces of the jigsaw that need to be covered here. Total cost of the marquee is 24,890, and the request from yourselves is 9,867, with the match funding coming from the Scottish Government. Just very briefly, in terms of the application, I thought it was extremely well written in terms of setting out the wider benefits of the mod for Lochaber as a whole, and also specifically saying why they need this marquee and why it's so important to the operation and what they want to do. And just to provide some reassurance in terms of the costings, this is based on 3 competitive quotes, and it does appear that this is a realistic cost for a marquee of that size, specification and duration of hire. So overall, I thought it made a very compelling case for the request, and I thought they'd really gone the extra mile to answer some of the questions in the application form.
Thanks, Martin. John?
Sorry, can I make a transparency statement? I've just thought I'm actually sitting on the group representing the council for the organising of the mod, but I don't feel I've got any sort of financial or other interests. So just for transparency, thank you.
Thanks, John. Just a couple of questions. How, thinking back to last Monday and the weather conditions, how resilient will the marquee be? Because the mod is October, November, isn't it? So what are the implications in terms of weather?
I think all I can say to that is I imagine that the technical specifications of the marquee are up to the job and will have been taken into consideration. These are companies, the quotes are from companies that have experience of providing these marquees for large events. So I can't comment specifically on the specification of what the marquee can accommodate, but I can only say that I would assume those considerations have been taken into account.
And it's just for hire and not purchase.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Oh, so are we happy to approve this application? Yep. Yes. Thanks, Martin. Final one is the Corran Ferry footboat.
Yes, the final one. Now, I'm aware members have had a presentation previously on this at your area business meeting, so I think you're aware of the wider context of this. It is, as I said at the start, essentially to replace the 35-year-old, I think, crew transfer vessel that the crew are currently using down there. It is not particularly an ideal vessel in terms of its specification, and certainly has some limitations in rougher weather. The application sets out, I thought, quite well the current safety concerns and operational constraints that the current vessel has, and also set out well the benefits that a more resilient vessel would have, both in terms of crew safety and also in terms of being much more seaworthy to operate in the Narrows. It offers the potential for a small-scale passenger transfer vessel in the event of the vehicle vessel being out of action. So yeah, I thought it addressed the wider benefits and the need for this vessel quite clearly. It's a considerable upgrade in terms of specification, what they're looking to use, and the application does make a good case for that specification vessel. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Questions? John?
Yes, please. Sorry. I noticed that there's maintenance costs on the existing vehicle of 30,000 over the 5 years.
Yep.
So potentially the vessel would pay for itself in sort of 5 years' time?
Not sure if it would pay for itself in terms of 5 years' time, but there are certainly significant reductions in annual maintenance costs set out in the application. They were, yeah, I've got them here. The current vessel is costing in excess of £8,000 a year in terms of annual overhaul and maintenance costs. The new vessel's projected to cost under £3,000 a year, and so there's estimated annual savings of £5,800 a year in terms of maintenance costs of the transport vessel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any questions, but I'd like to comment on this application. I agree with Martin. It is a well put together case for providing this new boat, not least of all for crew safety and future resilience in the event of the service being out as it was last week. But I do have a problem with the council using this fund for something that I think should be coming to a strategic committee to fund. This should come to the Economic and Infrastructure Committee. They should have made provision over many years to fund a replacement flip boat, whereas this money is meant to be used for additionality, as we've seen in the other two applications that have been considered this morning. Whilst I support this application because it would be churlish for us not to do so, I think we should note that the council should be making provision for something that is a core service, after all, within their own capital budget, rather than having to come to other funds to provide the necessary resources. And I'm disappointed that we are put in this position in agreeing expenditure that really should come from a core budget elsewhere within the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I guess a question from that is, are you able to clarify where the match funding has come from?
32,500 as in the application is coming from the council's operation budget for the ferry.
Thanks, Martin. Thomas.
Very much follow on from what Andrew just said, but it was in terms of additionality. I just wonder, is there any way that we could maybe trigger more funding when what's in place to provide a lifeboat kind of facility there? It's a dangerous piece of water. I agree with everything that this application brings to the table, but it would be handy if there was actually a rescue boat facility available, because that boat would probably be ideal for it. It was just, I'm just going to throw it in there, but it's something that maybe we could look at, and it would provide a degree of additionality to services that we have at the moment.
Just an observation, Thomas, within the application they have mentioned that the current vessel does occasionally serve that function. They have cited some examples of where they've had to deploy it in a rescue capacity in the past. And again, I think that's maybe just strengthened by the additional capacity that this new boat would actually offer them to do that if that was required.
Thanks, Thomas and Martin. Sarah.
Yeah, just want to say that I share Councillor Baxter's concern that's coming from this fund. I know there's so much funding, but where we are, and I think we need that boat very soon for the safety of the crew. But after what happened last week as well, we have a strong reminder that we need that boat for the community. And since the key word here is community, we at Highland Council will have to make sure that it is fully available in the case of a breakdown, not after a week, but within half an hour. And that will be a massive, that will make a massive difference, particularly for businesses, for the community. Last week, forget the storm, but when it happened, when we had the breakdown, and we had that boat, and within half an hour, if we had used it, we would have enabled businesses on the other side of the water to function. So for the week, businesses relying on passengers, foot passengers being able to cross over. So the boat needs to be able to operate within less than an hour.
And also not just the transporting foot passengers, but goods for small goods to
Yes.
businesses on the outside of the Narrows.
I spoke to some businesses last week as well. They say that when they had their passenger boats, they used it as well for some deliveries, not all of them, but some deliveries. So good conversation with the businesses and the community will be needed once we've got the boats.
Yeah.
How are we going to use it?
Yeah. How it will be built into the resilience contingency plan,
We'll talk about later.
which we'll talk about later. So I think members, are we happy to agree to this application? Yes, excellent. Thank you very much, Martin. And we look forward to seeing the next round of projects coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, so committee's being asked to agree that Councillor Saggers replaces Councillor Grafton on the Isle of Rum Community Trust. Is everyone happy to agree that? I am happy to agree that. Okay, thank you. I think we have no objection. So congratulations, Liz. So item 10 is Fort William 2040 annual update, and Alison is going to join us for this message.
Can I just say, Chair, that's the Shay Scott from the Fire Service has just joined in the lobby meeting. Do you want to take him now or later?
Shay's just joined. Shall we put you? I think if we'll do item 1 now, which is Shay Scott. Thanks, Alison. So good morning, Shay. Thanks for joining us.
Hold on, he's in the lobby. I'll just enter him into the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Alison.
Mhm.
Good morning, Shay. Thanks very much for joining us. I assume you're quite busy this morning, so thank you and thanks for the report.
Yeah, apologies, committee, for my lateness. It's one of my bugbears. I do apologise. There's a calendar mix-up, but just double checking that you've got the report and the exec summary that I sent through. As you're probably all aware, you've seen the new format for the scrutiny report, and I'm hoping that sort of reads a bit more easier than the old reports. Be willing to seek your feedback if you think it's a better way of producing the stats for the scrutiny report for you guys and girls to sort of walk through to make sure you're aware of where we are in the Lochaber district.
Yes, thanks. We have the report, and
Okay, great.
Looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go through a few bits of points, or it's all the exec summary, or there are direct questions for myself this morning regarding any outcomes for the report?
Probably just a quick summary of the key points.
Obviously, yeah. So as we always say in our reports, obviously important to note that the baseline for these indicators are sometimes low, sometimes the median to average, and it does pose challenge for us conducting some robust statistical analysis. As you'll see in the report, actually accidental dwelling fires in the region has remained consistent, with 5 incidents recorded in the Q3, Q4 reporting period. Importantly to note, obviously, which is really good news, so there are no reported fatalities or non-fatal injuries related to fires during this period. We had 5 non-domestic fire-related incidents. By non-domestic, I was talking about commercial properties or fires in or around commercial properties. These are obviously slightly higher than the previous periods. Also, we highlighted in the report, as you'll see, 8 occurrences of primary or secondary fire incidents involving deliberate fires, show an increase compared to the 3-year average. Sorry, Andrew Baxter's got a hand up, sorry.
Don't worry, Shay, that's just indicating to the chairman that I'd like to speak.
Oh, sorry, apologies, sorry. Thought it was for me, sorry. Yeah, so where was I? Sorry, yeah. Additionally, 5 non-domestic findings were recorded, which exceeds the area's typical level for such events. We had, during this reporting period, 10 road traffic collisions, RTCs as we call them, which is lower compared to previous reporting periods. These incidents resulted in no fatalities and no non-fatal injuries, with 1 person being rescued by firefighters. 38 incidents related to non-fire emergencies within this period, which is above the average and suggests an increase over the 3-year span. These incidents resulted in casualties, including 6 non-fatal cases, 11 people rescued by firefighters, and 1 fatality. I continue down. Yeah, and the last bit is obviously the continuation of the UFAS policy that was implemented 1st July 2023 continues with good results for that, which is we recorded 32, which remains below levels observed prior to 23, so it means we're moving in the right direction for UFAS as well, which is good. That's a brief sort of run through where we are. Open the floor to any questions for anybody, please.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shay. And Andrew, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. First of all, you asked for feedback on the new reporting style, and I think it is excellent and very clear.
Oh, great, thank you. That's great.
And a much improvement on previous reports. It makes it much easier for us to digest the information. I have 2 questions relating to very different elements of the report. First of all, about the deliberate fires, which I think maybe because the reporting timescale, we're maybe only seeing an element of that, and it may have moved on in terms of the new year. But could you just outline to the committee the work that you undertake with other public bodies in trying to deal with the situation? Because it's of course an open secret that many of these fires are related to a certain group of individuals that have caused other problems because of antisocial behaviour in the immediate Fort William town centre, and whether, in your opinion, the problems that we experienced earlier in the year within Fort William, particularly with fire-raising incidents, have now abated as a result of any action that you've taken or any other of the organisations within the town. And the second issue is about the section, an excellent section laying out how the service approaches the threat of wildfires, and particularly topical at the moment with Arthur's Seat in the centre of Edinburgh on fire, and substantial wildfire over on Darver Moor just a couple of weeks ago. I guess in many ways we've been fortunate this year in Lochaber that the impact of wildfires is maybe less than it has in previous years. So really my question is about how you're working with a service within Lochaber with both landowners and local communities to discuss the risk of wildfires and how we can prevent them, how we are working, or what your service can do to work with the significant number of visitors that come to our area. I know that your service issued a wildfire threat level earlier on in the summer, and about not using open fires and barbecues and like that, and other equipment like that. But it was very noticeable the number of people that were still building open fires in what I would consider areas of risk during that time. And also I'm mindful that just last week or the week before, there was an announcement from the Cairngorms National Park out with our area about them funding for additional equipment, particularly with landowners and people that are working on the land, to assist with dealing with wildfires when they occur. Is that something that we as councillors within Lochaber should be lobbying public bodies, whether it's the council or the Scottish Government, to provide additional resources in our own area? And what came out most importantly from my point of view with all the media coverage of Dartmoor and the Cairngorm National Park announcement was the statement that experts from Portugal were suggesting that we are only now 20 years behind them when it comes to the possible scale and risk to both life and property from wildfires as a result of climate change. And I wondered if you could comment on that statement and where you think we are with those particular risks.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Okay, so if I take your, but bear with me, Mr. Baxter, if I come back to you just to refresh me on some of those points, if that's okay as I go through this. Okay, thank you. So on your first point around the deliberate fires, so obviously in this quarter, in Q3, Q4 was, as you quite rightly put, is the start of what happened, and which will probably come out in the next figures for security for the scrutiny report, and we did have some antisocial behaviour regarding which would relate in some of the deliberate fires. As to our work with that, obviously there's the immediate response from our fire crews to deal with the fires directly, but there's also a lot of joint work that goes along with the Police Scotland in dealing with of antisocial behaviour. So obviously we as a fire and rescue service don't have a legislative for any sort of enforcement for that, but what we do have is our community fire safety teams and community fire safety strategies in which we can work with the local community to highlight areas of antisocial behaviour. And in this case, we worked with the police to sort of double our efforts. So in the areas where these fires were, we also, as well as the police having a police presence there to try and reassure the public, we also put one of our appliances, one of our fire rangers in the area as well to deter any potential people from trying to start the fires in that area. But also do some education as well, so people will come up and ask why we were there, and we could educate members of the public as well. So that worked quite well. It is an ongoing process and antisocial behaviour, and that incurs everybody in from Highland Council, NHS, Police Scotland, and obviously local councillors, and obviously members of the public, as well as all the voluntary groups as well, to try and put together and formulate strategies and work streams that can help support anti-social behaviour from starting. But purely from a fire service perspective, in that respect, we try and educate as best we can. We do lots of obviously school visits, fate visits, where we promote fire safety and communicate with schools the importance of maintaining that fire safety, and also the consequences of individuals who deliberately start fires. We also have a tool within our armoury where we call fire settings. So we will go and speak with the police to identify individuals who have started fires, and we'll speak with them and their parents and try to educate that way, and also make the parents aware of that. But that's done in conjunction with the police. In addition to that, we also have our fire skills courses and our stay on side course, which is happening at Fort William Fire Station, I think September, if I remember right, but I'll make sure you all have advanced on that. And that's like a load of identified individuals who have been either in trouble with the police or will likely be in trouble with the police will come to Fort William Fire Station for a week of training and education alongside the police, ambulance service and other interested partner agencies to install the virtues of, you know, making sure that we try to minimise antisocial behaviour. I don't think we as a fire service can ever eradicate that. I don't think as a community we can ever eradicate that, but we can try and reduce that as much as we can. And so we're constantly looking at ways and meetings to come up with new ideas of how we can try to support the community in trying to reduce antisocial behaviour. Does that help?
That was a perfect response.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay, sorry. And the second question was about wildfires. Is that right, Mr. Baxter?
Yes, wildfires.
Yep.
What can be done to work with local landowners and communities to minimize the risk and help them to respond, and whether we as councillors need to be lobbying for extra resources, as has happened in the Cairngorms National Park.
Firstly, far be it from me as a lowly station commander to say what you should or should not do with councillors. That is the purview of your job, not for me, I'm afraid. But we do work very closely. Obviously, you'll be aware of the wildfire strategy that's now in place for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. The former LSO of Highlands, Mike Humphreys, who's now the wildfire lead, national lead for wildfire, is well versed in having be able to be at the forefront of directing the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service sort of work stream in enhancing that. As some of you or may not seem aware, we've recently sort of redefined our response for wildfire within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service into a 3-tier response. So there we've bought extra equipment, and these are like small ATVs with what we call fogging machines, or which produce, as the saying goes, a fog of water mist, which can help support and suppress wildfire fronts. And we've had so we have stations now in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and now classed as either Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. And these are strategically located around the service. Obviously, Tier 1 is the standard response for most fire stations. Will have knapsacks, which are small packs on the back, which allow them to go be more mobile, water and direct water at specific seats of fire. Also beaters, which are used obviously to beat out the flames. And as you go up the tiers, so Tier 2, then we've incorporated now leaf blowers, which have been an effective tool that's been used for quite a long time with landowners and deer management groups for fires on their land to extinguish fire. And we have been training people for Tier 2 to be able to go out and respond to that. And also finally, Tier 3 is all of those plus a 4x4 and a trailer with a small sort of all-terrain vehicle which has a pumping ability and a fogging machine ability, which again has a four-wheel drive capability, which means we can get further and farther up with more equipment, which means we can be more effective in dealing with wildfires. In regards to partnership working, I think we're all of us are absolutely involved in this in any way, shape or form. And anything that you as councillors or as committee groups can do to increase that knowledge, understanding, awareness is obviously more than welcome. For us, it's a case of making sure that we work more effectively with the landowners and deer management groups, most of which have their own sort of almost like private sort of like firefighting media, as we call it, equipment they have, which we use absolutely in wildfires we've had recently, has been absolutely fundamentally important in helping us, supporting us to extinguish fires and making sure that we keep that minimum damage and danger to people and properties and infrastructure. So we are constantly having those higher up meetings strategically with the management groups and land management groups to understand what they can do, what their capabilities are, and how they can help us in future incidents. Drones as another part of the technology, which is one of the priorities for innovation as part of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service new strategic vision, is looking at drones and technology innovation. So they're always looking at other ways in which we can predict the start of these fires. I think one of the key words of prediction of weather patterns, humidity, and these sort of functions can give us a rough idea of when this is going to start, and perhaps where those places may be. And that goes into the whole realm of incidents, looking at the geography, terrain, aspects of mountains, that sort of stuff. And obviously historical data. Now we're building up quite a good database of historical data where these places are. So prediction is going to be another point. That is obviously where we put our appliances. So but again, that's all of us involved. So of course there's members of the public, there's the CCTV cameras that are on the mountains. We use them currently for winter, but obviously they can still be used winter. So again, we've got other parts of the puzzle we can use to gain as much information we can as possible, so we can get the response there as quick as we can, so we can try and stop the spread of these incidents. Obviously now it's quite pertinent in everyone's heads at the moment with the Arthur Seat incident that's ongoing in Edinburgh, and that's quite a prominent seat because obviously everyone can see that. So I think wildfire is in the front of everyone's mind at the moment. And again, what we're doing at a local level is making sure that we are speaking to local landowners, who we work with quite a lot, but also educating the members of the public and trying to educate them in wildfires and what they can do to their property or around their property, try and minimise that issue of any sort of wildfires if and when they do start in their area, what actions they can take to protect their property, or what they need to do to vacate the property, etc. So there's a whole lot of education piece going on as well. So it's all elements of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, through from response and operations through to prevention, protection, and through to community safety, fire safety. We're trying to hit everybody all at the same time. This, unfortunately, as we're now attesting to, this used to be what we call a spate condition incident, which means it would be every 3, 4, maybe 5 years we'd have a wildfire. Of course, now sadly it's an annual event, so now it's become a business as usual, and we'll have these events. So that is a sad state, but we have to manage that as best we can, what we can. Yeah, does that help, Mr. Baxter?
That's a very comprehensive response. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. I think, Sarah, have you got a question?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shane. And,
thank you.
And thank you for the report. Indeed, it's a very clear report. Thank you very much. I'd just like to, before I start, echo what Andrew has just said about Portugal. We will be like Portugal in 20 years. So again, that reinforces what we've discussed so many times, that climate change committee, that talking about climate change is not just about CO2 emissions, but also talking about adaptation, and wildfire will be a big part of it. So thank you for that, Andrew. Just a question about electricity supply in dwellings. It may sound like it's a low number. One fire is still one too many. But the question I have is, it's difficult. I hear from constituents it's very difficult to get builders, contractors, electricians to come to your house. What is the advice given to residents? Do we have residents who are struggling to get their electricity checked because we cannot find electricians, or also because of the cost of living? What is your engagement in terms of advice?
So, as regards to advice from the fire service perspective, it's mainly around fire safety within the house. So when we carry out home fire safety visits to residents where they've been identified that they are meet the criteria for a visit, we will always look at all elements of the house, including their domestic electric supply, make sure that's safe for use and purpose, etc. As regards to tradespeople coming into the area and their lack of trade, I don't think that's in agreement with the fire service, but I would imagine that there must be some form of a group which looks at verified traders that that the residents can call upon to go. I think one of the main ones that they use, I don't know if it's in Scotland, but they use Check a Trader in England, whereby you can go on a website and there are verified traders within your area you can call upon to come out and carry out equipment, essential maintenance of house. Other than that, we as a service probably wouldn't advise on electrical. It's all for fire safety. If electrics are involved, we obviously applying that. But as for builders and traders, we wouldn't be able to advise on that for residents, I'm afraid. If they ask us, then obviously and the one of the positives of being on the on-call service is that most on-call firefighters within 10 residencies live in the area. So if that question is raised with firefighters, then they, from a purely from a outside the fire service perspective, may know of someone or themselves will be traders who can help out. So there's always a way around that, and that's one of the beauty of being in the on-call, is that you have these people who work and are integrated into the community, and will be able to help those residents potentially because they'll know somebody who is a trader. So there is that element to that, but that's not an official sort of fire rescue sort of policy, but that is an addition, if you like, to having firefighters members of the community who serve in the fire service who have primary employment outside of the service in maybe a trade, and obviously work in the fire service. Does that help, Councillor Fannett?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think can't see any other questions. I've just got a couple of questions. It's certainly good to see the sections on wildfire strategy, BS systems, and the motorhome camping. Just going back to the wildfire strategy section in terms of partnership working, and that you're working with landowners and in terms of mule burn and prescribed burning practices. I would like to add to that certainly in terms of the Dartmoor fire, which was in an area of intensive mule burn managed land area, that it seemed pretty clear from that fire that mule burn did very little to restrict the spread of the fire. So I'm just wondering if within your partnership working, if you're also working with the ecological restoration community in terms of the work that's going on with peatland restoration and reforesting, because I think from Dartmoor fire it was the areas that were more treed and were wetter that didn't burn.
Yeah.
And it's also good to as Councillor Baxter pointed out, that good to hear that the Cairngorm National Park Authority is looking to provide more resources in that area in terms of firefighting, and perhaps a missed opportunity over here. Anyway, I'll hand over to you in response to the partnership working. Thank you.
So in regards to partnership working is exceedingly important. A couple of years ago, we ran an exercise run out of Cool Community Centre, which I wrote a scenario for a wildfire on Cow Hill. And the response, we had about 50 members of different partners all turned up for that event in Calgary. It was really good to see how, and it was run in conjunction with NHS Highland with Kate Cochran. And it was a case of what would we do and how would we work together as a community in that instance. And it was a really good eye-opening opportunity, I think. And the strength of feeling around wildfires was reflected in the amount of people who turned up for that. And it was a really interesting point. I think that started the ball rolling, I think, for a lot of talking amongst groups and partner agencies in regards to wildfire and wildfire sort of predictions and also recovery post wildfire is also a really important part that Kate sort of brought to the engagement session. I think for us, I think the more we have meetings at higher up level, strategic level, to look at other areas of Scotland, potentially talking about to Cairngorm, if that is something that potentially other areas can adopt, then that would be great. I think that is something that the wildfire lead, Mike Humphreys, will be looking at anyway. I think it might be just a matter of time before that starts to roll out to other areas, but I can't speak to that because I don't know that. But I imagine if it's happening in Cairngorm, so I imagine it will be a matter of time for rolls out to other areas. But I think that's what they're doing there is a great idea. I think there's also, I think was mentioned earlier about wildfires being continuing, and in some areas of Scotland they are stopped. Unfortunately, obviously the police are the only ones who have the authority for that enforcement of wildfires to be stopped, and the rangers, although they try to stop people, most people do listen, some don't. And so that's where the police are involved. And again, that comes into the police question because obviously they're always stretched in numbers, so it's trying to find police to attend some of these incidents, to speak to these wildfire campers to make sure they put the fire out. That's always going to be an ongoing issue. because of the geography of the nature of the Highlands is so far spread out that some of these areas where the people are quite remote and could take some time to get people to it. So the rangers are very important in sort of trying to enforce that as best they can. But yeah, it's an ongoing. The majority is the education piece. I think for all tourists who come to the Lochaber, I'm not saying all tourists, of course, but some aren't aware of our sort of laws, bylaws, and etiquette around wildfires, wild camping. And I think it's also incumbent on all of us, not just fire service, to make sure we come up with an effective plan and strategy for making sure that everyone visiting Lochaber, A, enjoy themselves, but also B, are aware of the what we will and won't take on in regards to wildfire camping, especially if it's in whether that is where wildfire predictions are being alerts are being put out, or predictions for potential wildfires are coming to a point that there should be some sort of system, I believe, to make sure that we highlight to everyone that that is the case and wildfires should be banned. But again, that's not for me to speak to that. I'm not speaking from an official perspective on that point. That's just my personal opinion. But I think our wildfire strategy for the service is looking into all elements of education pieces across the board to everybody to make sure that everyone's aware of those alerts for wildfires in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shane. Yes, certainly good that this year we have seasonal rangers who are able to go out and talk to visitors about responsible access and behaviour, etc. And hopefully, I think going forward, just if partnership working can involve the environmental restoration community as well, as it is, Muirburn is not the only way to preventative measure for wildfires, and in some cases is the cause. Anyway, thank you very much. And I don't think we've got any questions. Oh, John has a question.
I didn't put my hand up before.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much, Shane. Good morning.
Good morning.
In terms of your reports, yeah, very impressive. The summaries in bold with the big letters, I find, make it really easy to read, and the information comes across. So yeah, your summaries highlight that as really effective. Thank you. A few quick questions. I'm aware we've got time shortage as well. On the wildfires, and following up with Councillor Baxter's comments on the new bylaw that the Parks instituted, in one of the sections is about informing people. I'm wondering about signage. I know MOD properties have a big sign at the entrance to all of their properties that gives the fire risk level and a brief explanation. Now, I find that quite impactful, and certainly for foreign visitors, if there's local signage that says you're entering a high risk area, please be careful, that can have a good effect. Do you have a budget for any signage? And in terms of the council, maybe we need to look at what we've got. So that's the first question in terms of, are you including signage, and what availability do you have of funds to actually put anything into that? The second question was about the best sites. We went round the one in Fort Augustus fairly recently, and the units that were being installed, I believe, come directly from China. They had a gas suppression system installed, which I find strange considering that lithium batteries don't need oxygen to burn. So I wonder how that functions. But the engineer doing the installation wasn't aware of what gas was being used or the technical details of that unit. Now, I wonder, does the fire service have distinct information for each best site in terms of what's on the site and how it's being used, so that you know what you're going into? So that's the second question. Do you know what you're going into for each site in the Highland area or in Lochaber, in terms of what's the, and briefly the third one, it's more of a point. Your campers, I've passed several car parks on the way down here and passed several while I'm out and about seeing people. Campers seem to be parking like with a foot between them, which obviously is not fire safety. But the question is, how do we enforce that? And again, I think that's probably a point more for the council, but your comments would be appreciated. Thank you. That's my three questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So to answer your first one, I think I think the idea for signage for wildfire risk is a fantastic idea, and I think that's obviously in use in other countries at the moment. Because this is something we're new to, having it annually. A lot of countries are way ahead of us because they've had this for quite a long time, so they're well versed in this. Yeah, I think signage for for specific areas of wildfire or places of prominence where we moving traffic or people to that, I think it's a great idea. For funding, I would have to seek guidance on that. I wouldn't know, but I would be surprised if this is already forming part of the national lead strategy for wildfires. But what I can do is I can speak to them, and if I can make a point to report back to the next scrutiny committee meeting. Is that okay on that point?
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, report back. Report back. Yeah. Okay. Best sites. Yes. So currently undergoing all across the Highlands. All best sites are being tasked with visits from our fire safety teams and from stations to meet with owners, managers of these best sites to fully understand their fire plans, and also their various suppression systems that they have on site, and also what our fire plans would be as a council. Where would we go? What would we do? Where would we get our water supply from, etc., etc. Access, egress, all the other sort of points we look at when we're looking at these sort of sites to make sure we have a plan in place, and that plan is then made available to all of our control rooms so that any appliances that are moved into the area for an incident, potentially, hopefully we don't have one at a best site, everyone has on their there's a computer screen in each fire engine called an MDT, manual data terminal. On it is all our information, so they can easily touch screen on the map. They can highlight that best site, and that best site will come up with the information, councillor, you were talking about, at what they have, how big the site is, how many of these units they have, what their fire plan is, and more importantly, contact details for the company, but also for us, where we get our water from, where we put the appliances, all those sorts of considerations for an incident at the best site. So that's currently the work that's ongoing at the moment around the Highlands. Best sites are being made available, and then what we're doing, obviously, as a fire service, as our responsibility, is make sure we are collating a sort of a data map, if you like, of best sites within the Highlands. So once we have all the information in, then that's available to everybody as to how, what, and why they are there, and our response to that. Should we have that? Also, that would negate what we call operational intelligence, which is basically a frequency. Maybe every year there will be a visit to that site by either an operational crew or from someone from our community safety and fire safety teams would go to that site to make sure that the operational intelligence from the year before is accurate or needs updating, and then that's promulgated to the rest of the service as well. So we are working through that at the moment with the best sites. Hope that helps.
That was really good to hear. Thank you. The other one was
Okay.
just about the campers, but I think that's probably more of a comment than.
Yeah. So the camp fans, yes. Obviously, all of you, maybe some of you were involved in the storm on last Monday, which obviously came in the summertime, which obviously caught everyone out a little bit, I think. But there were lots of camper vans incidents we went to that were hit by the storms and were knocked over. So camper vans being parked next to each other is also another issue for us, obviously, because if one camper van starts or caravan starts fire, the radiated heat could start the next one. That could form a chain of incidents. Hence why there is a specific sort of distance between each caravan and camper van parking. So again, as and when we see that in the fire service, obviously we'll address that. But again, I think, as you quite rightly said, I think it's more of a council issue to make sure that those parking areas maintained are visited and people are educated to make sure they're away from each other.
I agree with that. And on that note, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Sinead, and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Take time. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Right, so item 10 is Fort William 2040 annual update, and we have Alison in the room, and thank you very much for waiting, Alison. I will thank you for the report, and I'll hand it with you.
Not at all. I understand how these things work. Very nice to see you and councillors online. Yeah, so you have this is the annual update of progress with 2040 and the programme over the last year and what will be taken forward for the next year. We have you have the executive summary recommendations looking at the sort of developments to enhance the programme and priorities, which is really a comment on where a lot of my time will be focused. So rather than going through it in detail, I'll probably just highlight a few things, but obviously open to questions on all of it. I think the main thing I'd like to draw attention to under the things to enhance the programme, we are looking at another annual community engagement event at the end of this year. There was a very successful one that my predecessor Martin held in Cool Community Centre in 2022. And obviously 2040 was set up with a big piece of community engagement work in 2018, 2019. So it's time to pick that up. But I'm looking at that in combination with colleagues in the area place planning and also the Lochaber Community Partnership, because they also are processes which have a requirement and a desire for greater community engagement. So to sort of make best use of the resources, we're coming together to do a combined event. We have also spoken to Val as well, Voluntary Action Lochaber, and Lynn is very kindly helping us look to coordinate that. So at the moment, what we've done is we've identified a date, which is looking like being the 12th of November, so a date for your diary, in the Nevis Centre, and running throughout the day, so we can have the greatest access to people who may or may not be working or have other commitments. So probably 12 till 8 or something like that on the 12th of November. The idea is to have an event where organisations who are seeking to consult and engage with the community on something specific could be there. It's Lochaber focus. Fort William 2040 is obviously quite Fort William focused, but we would have that Lochaber idea. It's also an opportunity for organisations to network with each other. I don't have lots of details beyond the idea of a date at the moment. The Cool Community event was just 2040, so there was stalls for various projects and organisations specifically involved in 2040 to come and present information on what they were doing and to invite the public. So that would be available to anybody to attend, to come in and just find out what organisations are doing and what initiatives and projects are underway. So a couple of key things that we're hoping will be likely for the event. I believe the NHS is looking at some engagement and consultation on their proposals for adult care provision. There will also be a lot of interest in the community on the ongoing status and progress with the hospital. And I would be looking to ask the consultants who have been commissioned to do the integrated transport plan to come along. There will be a whole host of other people at that event, and I would be able to provide an update closer to the time. But at the moment, that's what we have on that at the moment. In terms of priorities for 2040 going forward, there are a whole range, and you have the annual update on all the projects, 20 odd that are still currently on the master plan. Key focuses building on the town centre master plan work. So the board were very keen that I look at which elements of that can help be progressed. We're looking at sites that were within the ownership of key agencies within the 2040 board and Highland Council sites. Very popular or received a very good response were the proposals in the master plan for new and improved leisure and culture facilities, specifically considering the Nevis Centre going forward, the library and the Lochaber Leisure Centre. So I've been looking at producing a draft proposal to see if we can get some consultancy on board to look at those facilities in the town centre and what possibly could be the future configuration of those buildings. You'll be aware all three are within buildings that are relatively old for the facilities that are being hosted in them. There's questions of ongoing maintenance and whether there can be some rationalisation or extensions, or exactly what would be a really good configuration for a town of Fort William size going forward. What should culture and leisure services be? I would also be looking for them to make comment on what would be encompassed within the terms culture and leisure, but I think sport, recreation, events, arts, entertainment, and the kind of things that are delivered at the moment, but also things that may be aspirational. I've been speaking to colleagues, and at the moment we're just trying to establish where funding for that kind of piece of work would come from. But there's a hope that maybe it can be included in some of the Highland Investment Programme work that's happening, and that's an ongoing discussion. But the hope would be that something could be commissioned on that towards the end of the year. With the Town Centre Master Plan, there was a whole host of really, really exciting proposals, and some of them more ambitious than others. And I've been tasked to look at, which can be slowly progressed at the stage we're in. We're obviously in a difficult financial climate for certain developments, but another key one was the proposal to reimagine the bus station. And simply that's hopefully moving the bus station from its current location on McFarlane and potentially using the car park by Ellis Brigham's, linked to the hope that the hospital move. That has been put forward by my colleague. So there's the Highland Bus Service Improvement Partnership. They put forward 8 projects to a new Transport Scotland Bus Infrastructure Fund, which calls for that. Were in April, May, they put forward 8 projects, 4 in Fort William, 4 in Inverness, and the 4 in Fort William were the reimagination of the bus station, the bus gates at Glenroy and Upper Akintor, and also looking at a priority right turn on the A82. So we're just waiting on Transport Scotland to come back with their decision on those. I believe something is imminent towards the end of the month. So hopefully that will allow that piece of work to progress. There are a couple of other things in there which, if you'd like to come back, we can chat to. But the other main focus for my time, really, which is probably unsurprising, is the integrated transport plan for Fort William. That's a really big piece of work that we were able to finally get to the stage of commissioning. Consultants, ACOM Stantec are the consultants leading on that. We've had the inception meeting and some initial meetings to discuss data collection, and you'll have seen there has been some press coverage about that as well. They're doing a revalidation exercise at the moment. There has been quite a lot of study work done on road conditions in Fort William, and they're just checking the validity of that and whether they need to get additional data. You'll have probably seen that some rumble strips have been going in on the road, and that's the start of them looking at some data collection for 2 weeks in August. They are doing the last week of the school holidays, and they wanted to do the first week of the schools being back to give them a good comparison, and there will probably be an off-peak and off-season peak comparison done later in the year. There's a lot of people in the technical side of the data they're collecting with that here, but if anyone has any questions on that. So that study, and the other probably key thing of interest to yourselves, they will be developing an engagement and consultation strategy. They're aware that they need to revisit with the community, probably less so what the problems are, although there will be an element of that. They are going to come to the Fort William Transport subgroup meeting on the 17th of September. I am going to have them come to the next community stakeholder group meeting, which hasn't been established yet, but will be sometime in September as well. Their key sort of focus for engagement will probably be into next year, when they can actually bring options to the table, having looked at the data, re-established whether what we think is happening with traffic is accurate, and then I would hope they would be coming to discuss options, solutions, what can we actually do about this, and what the community thinks. But I'm waiting to see they're in the process of developing that engagement strategy. That's probably the key priority. So a big focus for my time, obviously the transport work, but also pushing on elements of the Town Centre Master Plan, plus where I can liaising with the remainder of the other projects and facilitating the 2 key sub-working groups, one on transport and one for community. So, and I'd happily take any questions.
Thank you, Alison. A very detailed summary. Obviously keeping you busy Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Sarah and then John.
Thank you very much. That's very detailed indeed. One thing, has there been any engagements we talked about? You talked about the integrated transport, but accessing Fort William by public transport without using the road. And particularly as we've got pontoons, marina, and we have got the Highland Ferry, but not enough use of it. The word water taxi was heard actually in the past. Has there been any engagements on that lately?
What there has been, so for the last, since I've been in post, whenever there has been something mentioned in relation to transport or travel in either in a formal or informal terms of meetings, I've been keeping quite a detailed list of that kind of feedback, and that has gone to the consultants as a starting point. Absolutely, they are very full to accord with Transport Scotland guidelines. It has to follow the sustainable travel hierarchy. So they are looking at the main roads, but absolutely considering all the other possibilities for alternative and active travel, so that isn't car or lorry dependent. So yes, that consideration of what else could be done on the water has been something that's been aired with them. We haven't had a specific conversation about that detail yet, but they're just at the early stage. So that's something certainly I can bring to the next meeting I have with them.
Because it doesn't just tick the box, active travel or public transport, but it's the fact that we are not using the roads, there's fewer vehicles on the road.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And alternatives as well, because what we suffer from in the Highlands is that wherever we want to go, a lot of the time there is one road.
Yes, yeah, so they'll be gathering that data and yeah, looking at the buses. But yeah, as you pointed out, we know a big problem for the buses is they're still on the same road, so things that take people elsewhere. Absolutely.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. Just following Sarah's question about the transport plan, I believe you're now including Cool in the Fort William 2040 sort of planning. And one of the reason why I'm saying that, one of the questions is the Cool link road that has been on and off the plans for a long time. Is there a point where we can expect some official formal clarification as to whether that link is going ahead or just wiped off? Or?
Yeah, yes. I believe, well, so the next Highland local development plan, Tim Stott is aware of the input. So I think the hope is that the ITP is going to look at these proposed link roads because it is a safeguarded corridor in the current plan, but will establish the viability, which includes, it's a question of engineering, but also accessibility and what else may be possible. And then my understanding is that would be fed into the next Highland-wide local development plan. But yeah, I believe there has been development which brings into question whether that is certainly viable as an alternative to full road route. Mm-hmm. So yes, that I'm at the next local one that would be clarified for certain.
Thank you. And just quickly, the STEM Centre changed the idea of the energy network. I noticed that your updates sort of about a year ago. Yeah. Is there any more going to happen with that, or have you sort of shelved that completely?
It's very much part. I'm still keeping in touch with the college, but their focus had moved to the potential for extensions at the waterfront, and in terms of a combined heating network.
Yeah.
Because the housing development has gone in, I believe, with heat pumps and has been more specific. So the work that High did still has some validity, but it would need to be progressed by the hospital or one of the bigger developments. And as far as I know at the moment, that isn't really available.
Okay, so at the moment it's online.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of paused, but not completely removed. Yes.
Thank you.
Thomas.
Thanks, Alison, and thanks for the report. It's fantastic to see all this down on paper. In fact, I think it's that great to see it that really you should be back at least once every 6 months, giving us an opportunity to look at this, not once a year. This should be before us every 6 months. If I could focus right in on the transport part and just on one specific point that has changed this year. We've got the new junction that's gone in at Lochaber High School and Farm Foods there, and it works fantastic. It is so fantastic, it overwhelms the Road to the Hills roundabout. The lights change incredibly quickly, and I am a resident in Torlundy. I drive through it all the time. There is no gaps in the traffic coming on to the roundabout at the Road to the Hills. So this leads to queuing traffic on the A82, which is the main arterial route through Fort William. And later on this afternoon, anybody will be able to see it clearly for themselves just by going to Google Maps. You will see a line of standing traffic to Torlundy. That's almost 2 miles of traffic. It will be also queuing onto the Blair a little bit, but a lot more on the 82. And there will be green patches between the Road to the Isles and the Nevis Bank roundabout. This is a new thing that has just come this year. Traditionally, we queued from the Nevis Bank roundabout. That's when it was really busy. But since that new junction went in, it has basically changed it a bit. And now you can quite often see traffic queuing at Marks and Spencer's, but especially at the Road to the Isles roundabout. And I've been saying this since I got re-elected. We need to get all these road infrastructure junctions and roundabouts talking to each other. Because at the moment, we've got a series of roundabouts, and the traffic coming onto the roundabout from your right has the right of way. And I wrote to the Scottish Transport in June, highlighting that they'd only just opened it, and it was obvious what was going to happen. I haven't had any reply, and I was just wondering if 2040 could take that on and highlight it as an issue for the Trunk Roads Authority to actually look at, because it's as clear as day. And as I said, later on this afternoon, if you look at it on Google Maps, you'll see it clearly. The traffic is not queuing so much at the Nevis Bank roundabout. It has been dissipated out of the town a little bit. And next week, when it will be at the absolute height, i.e. the kids are on holiday in England, the Lochaber High School kids have gone back, I think we might see a new record for traffic queuing up the 82 next week. And I think it's something we need to look at.
Thank you, Councillor Glenroy. Yes, this is one of the points that has been raised in discussions with TS and the work that ACOM and Stantec are doing. They are doing this survey over this next couple of weeks, and at the moment some temporary traffic counters are going in all along. So, because actually there was a permanent one the other side near the distillery, but to north of that roundabout on the 82, which hasn't been working for a couple of years, so they're putting in one at that point. But this is why this validation refresh exercise is so important, because I think most of the models to date have been using 2017 data. So that this is really important. What they propose we do about that will be equally interesting. But yes, that needs included in there. Really hopeful that this 2-week spell captures some of that change. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Just following on from that, presumably there will be counters on the A830 as well, because, for example, last week traffic was backing all the way up to BSW Timber in the afternoon. Yes, it would forever.
Yeah.
To the roundabout. So yeah, don't know where their counter locations are.
It may be useful. I have a map. There are but pretty well running from this side of the West End roundabout all the way through at critical points on North Road and Belford Road, and then across and then slightly north of the Lochaber roundabout, and then across. And I suggested it needs to go the other side of the Canal Swing Bridge as well. So you've taken that on board. Yes,
certainly. I mean, certainly regularly the council, the road will be backed up almost to Burnaby Swing Bridge from the river bridge here.
Yeah, and they're taking into account, the operation of the swing bridge where they can. And other thing is key turning junctions, and we have them and in the Lochaber High School and the Leisure Centre junction as well, additional stuff. So yes, it's really detailed.
So a pretty intensive monitoring exercise.
Yes.
Sounds a bit is desperately needed. So that is good that they will be generating data to actually advise the transport plan. Excellent. And good to see hopefully funding can be obtained for the leisure facilities options appraisal, because that's desperately needed given the decaying state of the all the buildings and that are housing our leisure facilities in Port William at the moment. So absolutely.
Chair, could you just indulge me one more time? Just that, as I say, it's such a valuable discussion. Can we have a wee discussion about having this once every 6 months? Because I'm aware that there's only going to be one opportunity now to discuss this, and there will no longer be councillors at a full area committee. So I think it should be something that's a 6-monthly thing. It's very important.
Yeah, if you're happy with it. Yeah, yes. Thanks. Good idea, Thomas. Thank you. I was going to say something and it's completely gone. So I don't think we have any more questions. It'd be great. The community engagement event in November sounds like just an excellent idea, bringing all the relevant parties together and allowing community involvement. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Alison.
Well, if there's any question anyone thinks of, obviously subsequently, please just email me. Happy to that through.
Thank you. And yes, I think I assume members are happy to agree their recommendations in the report. So thank you, Alison. And yes, we look forward to these projects progressing and work on the integrated transport plan progressing.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to item 11, the Corran Ferry update. And thank you very much for coming over to join us today, Richard. And thank you for the report and the updates. And I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Chair, members in the room and online. So yeah, being heavily invested in the Corran Ferry, I'm very happy to, as usual, to update on all progress. So this report combines an update on matters to do with ferry operations and also the Corran Ferry Infrastructure Improvement Scheme and the new electric vessel. So the latter two are signposted in section 8 of the report and detailed in the appendix, and colleagues will speak more on that after myself. So I'll start off. From an operational point of view, the items in the report include an update regarding the Maida Cool, the MV Corran, item on the revenue budget, capital budget, as I've referred to in section 8, and Corran Ferry fares, namely the foot passenger fare, the flipboat aspirations, and slipway repairs and ticketing. Those are the main items. So I could say a little bit about perhaps the Maida Cool refit to start with, particularly because it had an impact last week. The refit has taken slightly longer than expected, and therefore, when the MV Corran had an issue, the contingency vessel was not there to cover for 1 week last week. So the Maida Cool refit would have been expected normally to take, well, anything when she was a younger vessel, it would have been about a month. That's increased to about 6 weeks, latterly more like 2 months, outside 3 months, depending on the amount of work to be done. Of course, this time it's crept into 4 months. So that's I should say the emphasis does not sit with the yard, it sits with other third-party original equipment manufacturer specialists that we use to service the main machinery. So in the first month, we serviced the props, we replaced a prop blade, we replaced a lot of bilge pipe. We have also completed wiring replacement and HV cable replacement. We have done the planned work to both ramps, which centered around bushes and hinges, particularly issues with the first two fingers on each ramp. But we were subsequently advised to strengthen both ramps. So that was considerable additional amount of work, which was done by the yard, but done relatively timeously. We also had to upgrade life-saving equipment, which included installing a new life raft, overboard recovery davit, and a crew access door in the side to match the other end of the boat as a result of new legislation. So the details of that involved quite a bit of discussion with consultant and the MCA. So that was delayed due to those discussions. But it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the refit date-wise. So that, if you like, accounts for a month to 6 weeks. And the initial start was delayed from March. We didn't start till April because of congestion at the yard. But that can happen. That month of general works, we then had another 2 months after that because the forward main engine overhaul, which we would have expected to take at the outside 2 months, turned into 3 months. So all works were planned and all parts pre-ordered, etc. However, they made some decisions based on what they found. Planning was all focused on the crankshaft, but there was an issue, a borderline issue with the camshaft that they decided needed to be addressed. So parts there took a long time to arrive. So that was unfortunate and delayed us. Because of that delay, testing the prop that was serviced back in April couldn't be done, obviously, until the boat was back in the water. And they found that a judgment call they'd made in servicing one of the props, which could have been successful, and obviously we expected it to be successful, it failed, and there was a leak. So a seal, not the seal which they'd replaced, but the seal housing had to be replaced. So waiting for those parts then delayed us, and which is what has brought the service completion into August. So we've crept into the whole of the month of July and then crept into August. So based on those two items, forward main engine overhaul by original equipment manufacturer and the prop service by the original equipment manufacturer. So those are the specific reasons. So that's the Maidland Pool. The MB Corran, obviously the report states and talks about the planning of her next refit, which is relatively straightforward. Most main equipment services have taken place over the last 3 years. So there's one item left, which is one of the prop units, and that is all pre-planned. Talking about the Corran, it's timely then to mention the failure last week, which was it was a relatively small item. It was a monitor unit for the steering system, which the skipper depends on daily. It's a dashboard instrument, effectively, and the steering can't be used without it. So relatively straightforward, and it was turned around within the week. This is a part that is tested and signed off every refit annually, so this was a surprise. So anyway, the bigger issue is that there was no refit, no spare vessel to cover for it because of the delays to the main refit. Needless to say, we review the refit formally every year, and that will take place, and the outcome will be shared. Moving on then for now, of course, happy to take questions, and I'm sure there might be some discussion after we've spoken. The revenue budget speaks for itself, although the table in 7.6 highlights the investment that the council has made in as required to keep these vessels running. It focuses on the engine repairs, maintenance and refit costs, which are summarised in Table 6 over the last 5 years. And we've seen a dramatic peak there, and we're now on the other side of that peak and coming down again, thankfully. But what it means is we have 2 boats that are now in good condition to service over the coming years. The capital report, as I say, basically focuses on the capital investment, which is the Corran Ferry Infrastructure Improvement Scheme and the new electric vessel. And Andrew and Murray will be happy to update on that in 1 second. The Corran Ferry fare, Section 9, the foot passenger fare is due to be introduced. So, it was explained in the report that we've given notice that will be happening, and of course we now have to make it happen. So that's been dependent on a couple of things. One has been acquiring a machine, self-service machine, to put in the passenger lounge. So that has now arrived and will be installed as soon as possible. It was also dependent on making sure we had contingency cover for that, which basically falls to the pursers on board. If it does fall to the pursers on board, for example, when we have to put another bag onto the boat, we currently have one, and that would require additional cover in the office. So that cover has been sourced now as well. Some training required. So very shortly we should be able to implement that foot passenger fare. The next item is item 10, which is the flip boat. So earlier at the committee today, it was that application was included with others in a previous report as part of our attempts to secure funding to allow us to continue with that upgrade of the flip boat. And I think earlier as well, it was explained that the primary driver for that is safety of the crew transfer operation. Item 11 is slipway repairs, and I'm pleased to report that they are now all but complete, apart from cleaning and refresh of the markings as well. So that's good news to be able to report that. It's always a bit of a stressor for the operation when we're trying to run the ferry service, knowing that there's works required or being done to the slipway. So they were scheduled overnight, and a lot of effort went into liaising with neighbours and local businesses concerned about noise disturbance and the timing of the works, etc. So yeah, we'll all be pleased that that's been completed. Item 12 is ticketing. So there is an aspiration to progress and modernise our ticketing system as detailed in the report, which also talks about the wider context of that. And I'm pleased to say that that was approved in June, as it says in the paper. Following holidays in July, we'll now be able to push on with that and initiate that project, and hopefully report back to future committees about progress with that. So that's really all of the items I was going to go into detail on it. Item 15 is community and stakeholder engagement. Obviously, that is vitally important with a service like this. There was a lot of engagement last week due to the outage. We can always do more, and we would like to do better if we're required to do better there. At the moment, we have a 6 weekly steering group meeting, and we have a weekly update when either of the boats are at refit, going out to steering group members. Last week, unexpectedly, there was a lot of debate, and that's to be expected. Everybody cares deeply about the service. I think all will acknowledge the investment that's been made to date and is planned, whether it be to the slipways as discussed, to the vessels or for the new vessels and the new infrastructure. On that note, if the chair's happy, I'll let my colleagues take over and talk about the updates to the Corran Ferry infrastructure improvement scheme and the new electric vessel project.
Thanks, and if we could just have quick updates, because time is running out for the committee meeting, but yeah, thanks, Mary.
Hi, good afternoon, members. I think I'll let Andrew McKeever speak first on the infrastructure following the report.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The infrastructure progress report update has been provided, and the key items are that the planning application determination that's scheduled for the South Planning Committee on the 22nd of August. The tender for the infrastructure improvements, the documents and drawings, these were issued on the 15th of July to the 5 contractors. The tender period is 12 weeks and the submission deadline is the 2nd of October. We held the pre-tender site meeting last Friday, and in terms of programme going forward, following the tender return, evaluation and successful award, the construction works are programmed to commence in November 25 with completion programme for May 2027. That's it from me, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Over to Murray.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chair. Yeah, so just keep it brief, mindful of the time. So yeah, things are progressing really well, following on from members' approval at the Economy and Infrastructure Committee to continue our close collaboration with CMIL through a partnership arrangement as part of the Small Vessels Replacement Programme. So there's ongoing dialogue with shipping lawyers and CMIL to get this agreement in place. The principles for the agreement are in place, and we're now just looking to get the detail on that to finalise that agreement. Again, happy to take any questions on that.
Great, thank you, Murray. Thank you all. I'm sure there's going to be a few questions. Just to start off, I think we saw last week that there needs to be some work on the contingency plan when we only have one ferry working at the Narrows. And obviously going forward, I would hope that the new flip boat, which has now got funding, will be able to provide a passenger and a goods service. You know, we talked about this earlier in the meeting, within an hour to half an hour to an hour of a ferry failure, should we say. And so first question, when will the new flip boat be in operation? Presumably now with funding secured, it shouldn't take too long. So just, I think we need a lot more clarity on what the contingency plan is when we have a ferry failure and the other ferry's not there to back it up. Last week, there should have been a foot passenger in place within the day, within 24 hours of the ferry breaking down. We also discussed at the steering group meeting, there was quite a lot of discussion about marshalling areas and active travel access to the new infrastructure going forwards. So I think perhaps a bit more clarity on that. It was discussed at the steering group meeting, and hopefully that those actions will be taken forward that were raised at the meeting. Just the section on, is it 12.B? So I'm just finding the right section. The Corran Ferry ticketing project. Perhaps a bit of an update on where that is and how members, local members and the community will be involved in this, and it won't just be restricted to the reconfiguring our assets board, which was a new one to me. So what work is going to be done to ensure member input and community input as this progresses? think I'll leave it there. I'm sure my fellow members will have some other questions for you. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, so the point is well and truly taken about clarity on contingency planning. Flip vote, once funding is received, we're hoping that that can be turned around. It's basically as long as it takes to build it, which is about 6 months. And colleagues will have picked up your comment about marshalling areas and the new marshalling areas and active travel.
I think in terms of the new flip vote, there can definitely be discussions with the local community about, you know, its role going forward when there are breakdowns in terms of transporting passengers and goods for businesses on the other side of the narrows. Thank you.
Yeah, the last point was ticketing, and just to confirm that it's about to be initiated, so it hasn't begun, but that's a point taken on board there to keep members and the local community fully informed on that as it progresses.
Bold. Andrew, passing over to you.
Thank you, Kate. How I wish that I was no longer talking about the Corran Ferry. It seems as though it's the only thing that I've spoken about since I was first elected in 2012. And I guess this report and the presentation that we've had this morning pretty much sums up where we are, because I'm particularly disappointed that we've heard no apology, no one saying sorry about what happened last week, and yet again the council failing to respond to the needs of our communities. So I have a long list of questions, and no doubt officers were hoping that we could speed through this particular agenda item as quickly as possible because of the time that we are at this meeting. But I'm going to ask all of these questions, and I would like answers at this meeting, not what we normally get when it comes to the Corran Ferry, that I don't know the answer to that, we'll get back to you, because I think it's important that our Lochaber communities hear those questions answered today. So following up Councillor Willis's points about the contingency plan, can I ask, why was a contingency plan discussed with a third-party supplier on Sunday last week, but no action was taken to actually introduce that service until the Friday? Was that because the supplier was unavailable to provide a pedestrian service until then, or was it simply that the council's expectations of bringing the ferry back into service were unrealistic? Because councillors, when we finally got an answer to our question, were told it would be back in service on Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, and then the reality was the Friday. Why are we not introducing or have a system in place, knowing that this is likely to occur more frequently, that kicks in immediately? And I think that is something that Councillor Fannett has taken up elsewhere. Officers, no doubt, because I'm sure the press department have told them through their monitoring of social media, will be well aware of the open letter sent by Lochaber garages last week that was issued on Facebook. What are officers' answers or response to that particular letter? An important local business illustrating the impact that this has on their business and many others across the various peninsulas. Can I turn our officers' attention to other issues that aren't related to the loss of service last week, but are elsewhere within the report? Under item 7.4 on the revenue budget, it makes reference to a copy of the ferry services budget provided within the appendix. Why was that budget not included in budget papers presented to Highland councillors in the March budget this year, when we agreed changes to the fares on the ferry? That would have enabled our colleagues elsewhere in the council to make a better judgment on whether what we were being proposed was a sensible proposition. Instead, we got very scant information provided in that budget report. I note from Mr. Porteous's comments during his presentation how he has said that community and stakeholder engagement is so vitally important. Then can we have an answer as to why community and stakeholders were not consulted, neither were Lochaber councillors, when new ferry fares were proposed and then are now being implemented on the Corran ferry? Turning to item 9.4, Corran ferry fares and the introduction of the new foot passenger fare, I'm somewhat slightly confused by what is now being proposed. So we have a ticket machine within the pedestrian lounge. What about the numerous passengers that head straight up onto the viewing platform and don't go through that lounge? Are you suggesting that we now are going to have an additional member staff located within the lounge to check whether passengers have bought a ticket? So what measures are actually in place to ensure that passengers purchase a ticket and comply with the new requirement? And why isn't we simply not adopting the previous system of a ticket on this machine on the slipway and a purser taking those off the pedestrians as they walk past them on the ferry? My next question is, how long does it take for an aspiration to actually become an action? Officers told us about the aspiration of a new ticketing system. I've heard that on numerous occasions, area committee being told that new ticketing system is going to be introduced. We've just got to wait another 6 months. And now we hear that it's only agreed at this new council's reconfiguring our assets board in June this year. What has been happening for the last 5 or so years when we've been promised a new ticketing system? I'm astonished that it's taking so long, and Lochaber councillors are continuously fobbed off when we ask this question. And finally, in regards to the marshalling, can I raise once again, and I've done this with Mr. Porteous outside meetings, about looking at the introduction of a road traffic order on the Corran side of the Corran ferry, where one of the issues that occurs time after time are vehicles being parked and left within the marshalling lanes on that side of the ferry. It's mainly tradespeople, although I have seen HGV vehicles parking up there for rest breaks and taking up considerable space, and no doubt contributing to the problems that we have on traffic queuing that side, spilling onto the A82. Chairman, I apologise for the length of my contribution and the long list of questions, but I think it's only right that Lochaber councillors have this opportunity to scrutinise what is happening and actually ask officers these questions. And for once, I hope that we have some solid answers.
Thanks, Andrew, and some excellent questions in there. Richard, do you start with you?
Thanks. Thank you very much, Chairman, Councillor Baxter. It's a long list, so again, apologies if you have to remind me of any that I'm not answering. And I didn't pick up clearly the point about the budget report, but the budget details that are in this report were also similar information was provided to I think the 2 previous reports. In terms of introducing the
can I intervene there, Richard, just to clarify that point as you asked for clarification? The reporting and those budget figures, yes, I agree, they have been provided to Lochaber councillors at previous area committees. But when it came to the setting of the council budget at the full meeting of the council in March this year, none of that detail was provided to councillors in the budget papers asking us to increase the ferry fares in above inflation on this occasion, and the introduction of a foot passenger fare. My question is, why were those figures not included in those budget papers?
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Yes, there's certain questions I personally am unable to answer. But they will be passed on so that you can receive an answer. Thank you. I can answer about the ticketing machine. So the decision to put it in the lounge is because there's concern about it. Well, first of all, we only need one if it's in the lounge rather than one on each side of the crossing. Two, if it is on the slipway, then there's potential for people to hope that the boat will be held back if they're delayed getting their ticket out of the machine, etc. So they do a self-service on the boat, and then they present it to the purser when they're leaving the boat. Thank you. The marshalling area issue, vehicle parking there, is something that you have highlighted before. Obviously, if they park there in the ferry queue zone, then they're illegally parked. Passing on that information is helpful. Obviously, we are policing it. It's easier to police it now with the marshals that we have in place and using the live traffic cameras as well. Anecdotally, we are getting some messages like those that you've given just now. But also anecdotally from the crew, it's not perceived to be a huge issue, but if it is, then it's something that we have to deal with. And if it's an isolated issue, we are dealing with it. And as I say, they are parked illegally already by parking there. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. I don't know if others want to pick up.
I don't know if were there any questions of Marion, Andrew McKeever from Councillor Baxter. You covered everything.
Trying to think if I've missed anything here.
Everything, Andrew, Councillor Baxter.
No, I don't think everything has been covered, but can I, and I'll tell you the areas that I don't think have been covered. And I understand, Mr. Porteous, that you're unable to answer these questions, some of these questions, but then we need someone, if we're going to have a presentation on the Corran Ferry, we need someone, an officer that is able to answer these questions at an area committee. Otherwise, it's pointless us having this item on the agenda. Can I ask for a clarification then about the pedestrian ticket machines? If tickets are being given to the purser on departure from the ferry, what happens then if someone doesn't already have a ticket? Because that's going to end up with delays to the ferry, and I'm particularly thinking of those people that do not walk through the lounge, because you do not have to go through the lounge to be a pedestrian on the ferry. I don't have an answer to my question about the council's response to Lochaber garages and their open letters. I don't have an answer to my question about what has been happening over the last 5 or so years about a change in ticketing on the ferry, and I don't have an answer as to why, and still haven't had an answer, despite asking numerous officers this, why Lochaber councillors and community and stakeholders were not consulted, as was previously the case with increases on the ferry fares, including the introduction of a new charge.
Thanks, Councillor Baxter. Chair, in reverse order, I think the question about consultation was answered at committee and in previous steering groups. That was given by various officers at a senior level in the council. When it comes to ticketing, certainly lately, there's been a lot of effort gone into securing a person that can take that project forward. And that depends on funding, so that was latterly the issue. And the Lochshield Garages letter, yes, I'm confess I'm returning from a period of leave. I haven't seen the letter personally yet, but I believe it was, having spoken to colleagues this morning, contained a lot of personal thoughts from the person that wrote the message, although a lot of them I assume will reflect thoughts, feelings within the community. I believe some of them are quite some older ideas that have been addressed over the last few years, explaining as we've gone along in developing the project. Having said that, and that's something I'm thinking of personally when I'm thinking, can we do more, is when you hear things like that, it's disappointing because there's a lot of legislation and good logic which has caused us to arrive at where we are in the project that we have, and a lot of good work gone into developing the project. But if we don't bring the public along with us by keeping them fully informed and explaining how we've arrived at, then we're going to go over all the same points again and again and again. So I think there's obviously a need to get better at providing that information so that everybody, as far as possible, is as fully up to date as possible, and hopefully then appreciates the positives. I have circled here, though, in big bold writing, the first point that you made, which was an apology. So, I mean, if it hasn't already been given, then personally I would be happy to apologise on behalf of the service for the outage that we had last week, and hopefully, although it doesn't remedy the situation, that can be acknowledged, that we have apologised as a service for the outage.
Anyone else? Any questions? Oh, sorry, Thomas. Yep. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be as brief as I possibly can. I think like a debacle like this, this doesn't happen just over the space of a few months. This takes decades of sort of mismanagement, that we don't have adequate boats in place, that there is no plan done to replace a new ship the moment it goes on the water. And then the music stops and we all inherit this. At the end of the day, like 3 years ago, there was a ferry that was at that time the Corran 20, whatever it would have been, 23, 22, and no money to replace it. And now there is money there, and it took quite a bit of fighting and scratching and shouting to get it. So I think we need a wee bit of recognition that we actually have moved things on. We may not have. Personally, a diesel ferry wouldn't have been my first choice, but there we are. We are where we are. The only place we could get money was with an electric battery, and we've got it. And all these plans are in place now to bring new infrastructure. It's no use last week. It's not going to be there for a few years, but there has been. It's one of these subjects, like, we can never win. We've inherited this mess, and that's that. But as I say, it took decades to get to this state of affairs. As regards to the parking issue, I can't understand how we can't have adequate signage, cameras and prosecutions. You wouldn't need to prosecute many, and the parking problem on the Corran side would dissipate. I think everything I wanted to say has already been said, but there was one part I didn't particularly want to discuss, the papers pertaining to the infrastructure and the planning that's coming up in another 10 days, because I'm on the planning committee for that. But in section 5.1, it highlights that, and I'll just read it out. it says that it is anticipated that the new Corran vessel will be the first of 4 vessels built as part of the SVRP Phase 2 with an estimated delivery date at the end of 28-29. I just wanted some sort of assurances given to us that we're not going to be in a position where we're a prototype or a pathfinder, you know, a test bed where we get the first one and it's got lots of issues. I just want some assurance that there's going to be some really bulletproof checks in place, because I think if I was buying a car, I would want the first one off the production line. It's just an assurance for the people in that. But I associate myself completely with what Andrew said and fellow councillors. But just if I could get some information on that. Parking, why we're not prosecuting. Issue of us being a prototype, and that'll do for the moment, I suppose.
Thanks, Thomas. I'll hand over to whoever wants to answer.
Yeah, do you want to answer that one, Murray, on the prototype question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that question, Thomas. Yeah, to give you some reassurance, the small vessels replacement programme Phase 1 has already been awarded to a shipyard in Poland, Remontoa. So we're going to get lots of lessons learned from those ships being built before we start maybe building the Corran one. They are all standardised. They'll have the same wheelhouse, they'll have the same propulsion system, and the same type of battery technology. So we'll learn a lot from that, from those vessels coming out. And then what I would say to give you some confidence as well, that I think one of the first ones that will come out of the production line will be for Colin Trive Robotic, I believe. So our crew will have the opportunity to go along there and, you know, try out that vessel before we're actually, you know, taking ownership of our own ship. So the name of the game, I suppose, is standardisation. So we should have a lot of lessons learned. I do appreciate your concerns about if we were just the first one, you know, trialing it out, but that definitely it will not be the case.
Thanks, Murray. And I think Sarah's got a quick question because
yes, I think it's more of a contribution after what happened last weekend. Contingency plan. Now, I've heard that we have contacts, we have solutions, but the question is not what contacts do we have, what are we going to do, what boat are we going to use? The question is when we're going to press the button. And I would continue to argue that, I mean, we've got another 3 years when we're going to operate a lot of the time without backup, because the annual refit is taking more and more time. So I don't think we should have things like, or we'll see how long it takes when the ferry breaks down. There are certain incidents that should automatically trigger the contingency plan. So, for example, on Sunday night, when we knew that we had a departure order, on Monday morning we should have had the plan in action already. But the plan is not just a contingency. The passenger boat. I mean, I welcome the fact we're going to have a fleet boat that will be immediately available. But there's more than that about the contingency plan. There's also the use of the Highland ferry. There was a minibus during the crisis in 2023, which was very popular with members of the community. They had found new ways of travelling to Fort William. So we need to really look beyond just the passenger boats. As Camus Nagol, there's a minibus, there's also signage. But the key question is, we need to be clear, absolutely clear, how the contingency plan will be triggered. We'll wait and see. That's not good enough. I spoke to a business on just one day. Their loss was 85% in their turnover. Nobody in this room, nobody at Highland Council lost 85% on their salary last week. Every day the ferry broke down. So this is the damage it is inflicting on communities. We need to react. We need to respond, not react. And we need to respond much more quickly. And we need to have a list of incidents that will automatically trigger the contingency plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And I guess going forward, it would be good if there could be, you know, this contingency plan could be shared with members for comment, etc. I think there needs to be a concrete plan, and as Sarah says, when will that plan be triggered? So if we could have an action going forward to be involved that contingency plan development process.
And clearly communicating with the communities.
Yeah, and with clear communication with the communities. So thank you. Is this very quick, Thomas? Because we're
yes,
running
I do apologise. I just wanted to answer about the prosecution element via cameras, etc. Can we exercise that, improve the signage, make it absolutely bomb-proof that we're on safe ground, and prosecute some people that park their cars where they shouldn't? And the other quick part I was wanting was basically just an assurance that there'll be a review of the tendering and repair process that our ferries are undergoing, because in the whatever amount of years it is I've been involved with Corran Ferry, well, I know they're getting older, but we seem to have gone from 2 to 4 weeks being the norm to sort of 4 or 5 months and longer. I would just like an assurance that there's some kind of review be done of the tendering and repair process.
Thanks. Yes, I wasn't there, but I believe this came up at the steering group meeting. So the current yard who undertakes the refit services were successful, having gone through a tendering process for that. So that is, well, that was a positive at the time. For a start, it gave us surety that we would have a slot for each boat annually without the worry twice yearly of that, because it was an individual tender for each boat each year, which was left us wide open to the risk of not meeting our refit requirements, and therefore not being able to regain our passenger certificate annually. So we had to have surety there. So we went through that competitive tender process using the standard public contract Scotland vehicle for that, and both boats are in the same package, which is recommended through the council standing orders for similar types of work, so that we benefit from appropriate economies of scale. And as part of the tender process, you know, there's you can only win the tender if you can evidence that you're able to do such work successfully and reliably. So we've been through all that as part of the tender process. So that's the tender. When it comes to the individual refits themselves, then obviously part of the tender management process is to review each refit with the yard, and that is what we'll be doing as well on this occasion. So there'll be a bit more in that because it's been such a long refit. As I tried to, as I sort of alluded to earlier, you know, being closely involved, I'm aware that it's been mostly down to third parties and delays with sourcing parts for unplanned work, which is, it is what it is, unfortunately. And every effort at every step along the way has been made to expedite these issues, and everybody that's involved, we're a very small team. A lot of us have been involved for a very long time, which doesn't breed complacency, it breeds the opposite. Everybody's heavily invested in it and doing everything they can always to expedite it. Having said that, you know, we will share the review. I understand that everybody who's not closely involved, these are the natural questions to be asked, and people want answers and they want to see those answers. So that's what we will do.
Thanks, Richard. I think certainly at the steering group meeting there was an agreement that the tender process would be reviewed. So I guess if we can have an update on that going forward, coming back to committee, but certainly steering group committee agreed that. So thank you very much to Richard, Andrew and Murray for joining us today for the extensive report and for answering our questions, and we look forward to the Ferry project progressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Safe travels.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So item 12 is the housing performance report, and we've got Angus Laurie and Graham Ruff online. This is here? Yes, Angus is here. Thanks. Thanks very much, Angus, for coming along this morning, and thanks for the report. I think just hand over to you, Pat, for a very brief summary.
Yeah, morning, afternoon all. So housing repairs and capital report for Q1 2025. You'll note the repair contains some information on capital spend and in-housing stock on Lochaber. So I'll give a brief overview of some of the key indicators before passing back for any questions. Two performance indicators generally considered as key to performance are emergency repair times and non-emergency repair times. The emergency response times is currently sitting at 3.6 and 4.4 hours across the two wards, which is within the 12-hour target and better than the Highland average. Non-emergency response is currently sitting at 5.7 and 4.6 days across the two wards, which is within target and better than the Scottish Housing Network benchmark of 9 days and Highland average of 6.5 days. Void management. These figures encapsulate the total time a property is void from termination of tenancy to sign up of the new tenancy. As usually the biggest time element of a void is the repair process, then it's included in this report. Figures of 13.04 days and 45.44 days across the two wards. Apart from the kind of positive anomaly in Q1 and Cool and Mallock, figures remain broadly in touch with the Highland average, but out with the target from the Scottish Housing Network counterparts. Problems with voids include the poor condition they've been returned in and much reduced reliance on contractors due to escalating costs, which have increased our times over the years. So in the capital programme, you will see that there, from the tables, that the split between planned investment and reactive capital investment. Planned investment prioritisation considers the age, condition, efficiency, life expectancy, and previous opt-outs or any other anomalies of the properties. The current planned investment programme runs from 2022 until 2027. And the large portion of investment has been a rolling programme of heating replacements. There's 387 up until this point in the 2022 to 27 programme across an area stock of around 1550. We've accelerated spending where needed on capital investment to react to things such as heating failures. Additionally, we have recently been working with colleagues in capital and energy teams who are helping to tap into new funding for part or fully funded projects through the government Eco4 scheme. These will complement any funding and projects that are already planned, and at times have also meant accelerating funding to grasp an opportunity of the external funding. A few of the other kind of key takeaways, as you'll see in the tables, in the 22 to 25 so far, there's been 27 wall installations, 132 new roofs, 359 door replacements, 152 whole house window replacements, 167 bathrooms, 225 kitchens, the previously mentioned 387 heating replacements, 173 solar panel installs, and 47 full rewires. Specifically on the heating, I did a bit of a deeper dive when preparing for this and found that we've replaced 1,000 or close to 1,100 new heating systems since 2010. So in the last 15 years. In 2011, opt-outs started being recorded. In that time, there's been 172 opt-outs. So that's a brief overview, a quick overview of the paper. So I'll just hand back to the chair at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Angus, and thanks for the report. I think good to see, certainly, you know, as mentioned under the capital programme, the investment that's going on and working with the climate change and energy team to secure further funding opportunities, which are very important. And I last year visited the houses in Cool that were being retrofitted, and it was fantastic work going on over there. So yeah. Any other questions? No questions. So you've got off lightly, Angus. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work. Thanks a lot for coming along.
Thanks all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. So we have item 13. Just members are invited to note the ward discretionary fund grants to wards 11 and 21, and the Lochaber trusts and bequests in that section 2, and the item 14, the minutes have been circulated for information. And on that note,
Chair,
Andrew.
I have a question on the minutes, please, and a wider point to make. Can I ask for an update as to item 5.4 on the minutes and the invitation to Councillor Ken Gowans to attend either today's meeting or the November meeting of the Lochaber Committee? And on item 6.3, we are still waiting the information as requested in point A on that meeting. I am concerned that we agree things at area committee and then they seem to disappear within the ether of council headquarters. How can we ensure, knowing that the committee clerk from this meeting prepares an action list for officers to respond to such items in a timely manner, how can we ensure that that is actually done and it doesn't need a councillor to raise this issue when the minutes are approved in the subsequent committee meeting?
Yeah, and thank you for raising those, Councillor Baxter. Certainly, perhaps more detailed scrutiny of minutes going forward. We do have an action tracker now, which is now including area committee minutes. So perhaps the items you've raised, certainly they can be actioned for the next area committee meeting. That would be appreciated. And yes, it's up to all members and officers to ensure that actions are acted on and reported in a timely manner. Thank you. Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just in relation to the invitation of the Chair of Environmental and Infrastructure Committee. The invitation was sent. I'm still to get a response. So obviously it wasn't today. So we'll see what if the Chair is available for the November meeting of this committee.
Yep. Thank you. So everyone's item 14 noted. And on that note, I will thank you all for coming along this morning and this afternoon, and we will close the area committee meeting. Thank you.